Well, hello again. Bob Kennedy, introducing a segment called Run for Your Miracle. There's a lot of good reasons why we chose this segment, and one of them I can tell you for sure, and the primary reason was when I decided to do the piece, I knew there wasn't any question that the video that I was going to do, now called the March and April Forward, that video was going to be extremely successful. On this particular morning when I chose that I was going to do the highlights of this piece, I was a little bit depressed, and already I knew even if I stayed depressed that day, that morning, the next day, everything was going to be okay, and I think you'll see from the piece why I might have thought that way. The second reason I chose to do this piece is an example of something that, my point of the triangle of success is there are certain things that we can do that are positive. We can do them over and over again. We can get them, having a miracle, doing miracles is something that happens all the time. We don't want to approach miracles as though there's not going to be one happening for us. We want to approach, of course, miracles are happening for us. Why, just today, a miracle happened, well, you're having a miracle already, aren't you, some of you? All right. This is a piece from Joyce Meyer, which you can go find at any moment by going to joycemeyer.org. Long story short, I have become a partner, which means I contribute to Joyce Meyer's ministry because she's contributed so much, and every morning now I gather around my television at 9 o'clock, unless I've got something else to do, but it gets recorded and replayed. She's my sales meeting every morning, and she's so good to do exactly what she describes. She makes everyday life, or helps us make everyday life better, and she's done it for me, and she's going to do it again tomorrow morning. Watch. And by the way, you can rerun it by going to Joyce Meyer, because she's got video on file. Oh, wow, isn't that crazy? Okay. Oh, and the last reason that I really liked presenting this particular piece, it happens with a lot of things that I have done in the past. It will happen again, and it happened with this piece. When I get all done and I'm reviewing it for the 15th or the 16th time or whatever it is, or somewhere in between, I have a tendency to cry because of how good what it is I'm looking at is, and how powerful the impact can be forever, literally, for me and for you. That's the test. Running for your miracle.
I had always hoped that I could have a miracle, and I'd always believed that I could have a miracle. But one day, I had the faith that I could have a miracle.
In 1976, at the age of 13, Penny Shepard fell and broke her tailbone. Every day since, she has lived in chronic pain.
When I got out of bed in the morning, I felt like somebody had just put a knife in my back. I couldn't bend over to wash my hair in the sink. I couldn't stand for a long period of time. I couldn't sit for a long period of time. I couldn't get out of pain. I was raised in a Christian home, and I have loved the Lord all of my life. And I truly believed that He could heal me, and I knew that He could. And I just looked at the potential, that every day was the potential that I could receive my healing.
Typically what we're taught in our training is that there are certain conditions you cannot reverse. A spinal fusion, a disc that degenerates to that extent, you can never get that disc function back. You can get the body to properly function, but her disc was degenerated quite a bit. Once it's degenerated or shrunk up and shriveled, that disc doesn't come back ever the way it was before, outside a miracle.
Year after year, Penny kept asking God for her miracle. Then one day, out of the blue, in her prayer time, she heard something very different.
And I felt in my heart these words drop down on the inside of me, run to your miracle. I'd never thought those words before. Run to your miracle. Because number one, I'm not an athlete. I'm not a runner. And running didn't interest me in the least.
Penny's not a runner. Matter of fact, she can't stand to run. It's not something she is naturally inclined to do. And so when she shared that with me, It immediately seemed like God. So I thought, you know, that's just like God, to want to perfect His strength in our weakness.
Dr. Rogers went one step beyond giving Penny the medical release to run. She offered to act as Penny's trainer. She saw this as her opportunity to see a long-time prayer answered.
When I was a student, Doctor, I prayed to see miracles. I prayed to see it in my practice. I was excited. I thought, this is it. This is, you know, I can be in part of someone's miracle. This is it.
For the next 4 months, I trained for the marathon, and I didn't tell anyone that I was doing this. But it was my responsibility that the word of the Lord not get aborted through doubt or confusion or fear. And I couldn't have anyone tell me that I couldn't do it, because I knew I couldn't do it.
To me, one of the greatest examples somebody can be is that they're an inspiration. And I can truly say about my wife, the way she got up day after day after day, 3 o'clock in the morning, she was determined to do her training every day. And I can truly say about Penny, she has been an inspiration to me. And it's the greatest form of inspiration that I've ever experienced in my life.
I wanted to be able to stand at the starting line and know that I had done everything that God had asked me to do.
If there's anything that you need to make your mind up to tonight, it's I will never give up. I may not hit it right every time the first time, but I will never quit and I will never give up.
The night before the race, I could hardly walk around the hotel room. I knew that this was the enemy. I knew I was getting ready to receive a miracle. And I knew that this was the enemy's way of trying to attack me. And I was determined to show up at that starting line.
After months of training and sacrifice, Penny had willingly paid the price of progress. She was running to her miracle.
Even though I could hardly walk and wobbled, literally hobbled up to the starting line, I knew I was right where I was supposed to be. All I know is as I was standing there and I could hardly walk, I turned to Dr. Rogers and I said, Kelly, my back doesn't hurt. My back doesn't hurt. Now, I haven't heard those words come out of my mouth for 28 years. My knee hurt like crazy, but my back didn't hurt.
With her back free of pain for the first time in 28 years, it never crossed Penny's mind not to run the marathon. However, the pain in her knee was so severe that Dr. Rogers suggested they begin the race walking to warm up and see how the knee responded.
About 1.5 miles into the race, I felt a refreshing or a coolness come under my kneecap. And I told Dr. Rogers, I said, I think I'm going to be able to run.
At the 14-mile marker, Penny and Dr. Rogers were informed that they were 36 seconds off the 7-hour pace. If they did not make up the time, these sweepers, as they are called, would escort them to the finish line in a van. Penny's back was pain-free, but the pain in her knee was so severe it was making her nauseous. She read the messages on her hands. Scriptures like Isaiah 40:31, they will walk and not grow weary, they will run and not faint, offered her strength. She even began quoting them to other runners to spur them on.
At the 23-mile marker, I was hurting so bad at that point. My daughters came through the cones. I could hardly move. My body was so numb at that point. And one got under one arm and one got under the other arm, and they held my hands and they ran with me. And sometimes you just need somebody to run alongside with you. But I got to a point where I was going down a hill, and there was a lady at the bottom of the hill. There were spectators all along the way. A lady at the bottom of the hill, and she yelled out really loud, and she said, I can see the finish line. And I yelled back at her, and I said, you can? She goes, I can see the finish line. She said, it's right around the corner. I ran down that hill and turned the corner, and there it was. the finish line.
I ran up and I just hugged my mom, and I was so proud of her. I just get emotional when I think about it because I said, "You're my hero."
I'm amazed by it every day. It's new and it's fresh to me every morning. When I get up and put my feet on the floor and my back doesn't hurt, it still as new and fresh to me today as it was on January 11th when I received my miracle.
Doing something that was a 0% chance, that made the miracle even sweeter when it came.
I didn't get healed at the finish line. I didn't get my miracle at the finish line. In my mind, I had always envisioned that I would cross the finish line and get my miracle. I got my miracle at the starting line. All I had to do was show up.
What I saw about her was a willingness to push through things most people wouldn't push through. And that's the attitude that you have to adopt, definitely if you want a miracle.
Seeing my mom's determination and seeing her faith and obedience, you know, in trusting in God, you know, that has gotten me through so much.
You know, I've heard it all my life that all things are possible, but now I know all things are possible.
Don't give up. There's a message of hope. There's a message of faith. God is an awesome God. You never know, today may be the day that you get your miracle.
Well, Penny's testimony is so absolutely amazing and so encouraging.